Hey, what's up? My name is Chelsea Alvero.
Girl, who cares?
Shut up, please. And today I will be shortly summarizing the catastrophic events that took place in the battle that drew two navies together, defining the war in the Pacific, which came to be known as the Battle of Midway. Taking place just 6 months after the Pearl Harbor incident, not even incident, the day of infamy, and the conflict of the Coral Sea, which I will not go into further detail, but just know that they were two battles that would also impact both the US and Japan. And so the Battle of Midway would take 3 days to end from June 4th up until the 7th of 1942, ultimately becoming an event that would acknowledge the US and humiliate Japan, which, fun fact, remained confidential among the fellow Japanese, excluding the Japanese government. Now, to start all off, the Japanese operations sought to remove the US as a strategic strength within the Pacific to avoid interference with the Asia co-prosperity sphere, which basically meant that Japan didn't want their dominance in the Pacific region to be affected by the US's presence with their American base located at Midway Atoll. But this was not their main motivation for the attack. It was the revenge from the Doolittle raid, a U.S. Army Force bombing raid that bombed parts of Japan, including Tokyo. And so Admiral Yamamoto Soroku believed that a battle would solve the problem, choosing the American base as a location. But because the Japanese fleet was widely dispersed, strategic plans were made over radio by Yamamoto, enabling U.S. Navy crypto analysts based in Hawaii to receive information. And Admiral Chester Nimitz decided to risk his carriers and plan an ambush. On June 4th, 1942, the Japanese were spotted by a patrolling PBY Catalina and eventually confirmed by radar that they were heading Midway, causing American aircraft to follow the Japanese while the American carriers waited. The mistaken attack on Admiral Nobutake's Kondo's invasion force was marked as the first military engagement in the battle, and taking off of Midway Atoll were American carrier-based fighter planes like the Wildcats to defend the atoll. However, weren't able to defend themselves from the bombers, as Japanese bombers bombed many institutions, including hospitals. And sadly, Americans were unsuccessful with their bombings, attempting to attack the Imperial fleet led by Chuichi Nagumo. Attacks between the U.S. Navy that occurred separately confused the Japanese, ultimately causing Frank Fletcher and Raymond Spruance to send aircraft to follow the Japanese, while one U.S. submarine was discovered by a Japanese fleet. USS Novelist, led by Lieutenant William Brockman, were eventually attacked by the enemy, including the Arashi, which was sighted by U.S. Navy aviator Wade McCluskey, leading him to their carrier force. And at 10 a.m., American bombers from the USS Yorktown and Enterprise were sighted with one another, attacking 3 Japanese carrier planes, including the Soryu, Akagi, and Kaga. The remaining carrier Hiryu survived Yorktown's torpedo planes and attacked the USS Yorktown after. But unfortunately, the Yorktown sunk on the morning of June 7th, and Hiryu was eventually bombed by planes coming from the USS Enterprise. I don't know if it was obvious to y'all, but the Americans won the battle through great strategic planning against the Japanese, who had to switch tactics, but unfortunately failed. There was only one. The Battle of Midway is considered the most decisive U.S. victory and is referred to as a turning point of World War II in the Pacific, which teaches us the importance of addressing every combat readiness to avoid serious consequences as the ones faced by the Japanese. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot about this battle.
And hey, I'm just looking forward to having some fun times.